you if you don't knuckle down and get honest with the negative thoughts that are going on in your head. Write down a list of them in one column. Sit down one day, take half an hour, write down a list of the limiting beliefs you have, the negative thinking. I can't do this. I don't have enough education. I don't have enough money. Whatever it might be. And then in the other column, write down the opposite. And that's what you need to start saying to yourself.
Wow, that's a great idea. Do you do a lot of that with your clients?
I do, because it works. You know, everything I've done with clients over the years, I've done with myself, and I can honestly say that if anybody had told me 20 years ago I would finally get to this place, I would say they were nuts. Well, if anybody had ever told me I'd write a best-selling book, I'd have told them they were nuts. But
now, I'm not going to put men on the spot, but do you find, because you said you worked with men early on in your career, that men come actually over, like their ideas of them, their capabilities is actually a little exaggerated compared to women, where we seem to be a little under our what we think about what we're capable of doing?
Actually, not usually, because men, I don't coach the corporate world because I don't want to. That's not my market. But if I do coach men, even now, there are men that say to me, oh, you only coach women. And I say, no, if you really, want coaching, I'll coach you. But the very first thing I do with men is I want to know why they want to coach. And if they are, again, if they're taking action and not getting the results, I don't pull any punches. I tell them up front, you're not thinking the way you are thinking. In other words, I'll say to them, I'll explain the difference between the conscious and the subconscious. I'll explain what happens. But generally, I find that when men will hire a coach, it's because they have an open mind. It's the men that don't have open minds that won't hire coaches.
Now, I want to go back to one thing you had said earlier about your business. You had said that your business had went through a couple of renaming, and I'm a little curious about that. At what point, of course, you renamed it about 2 or 3 times, but what point made you want to rename it? Or you said in the beginning some people didn't quite understand the name, so you changed it. But at what point did you make a decision to make a change? And the reason I want to just go over that, because I know that Launch Over 40, we really encourage women to take that step to start a business if that's what they wanted to do. And I know sometimes for myself, even starting Launch Over 40, you have one plan, but as you talk to clients and things develop, sometimes you do have to make a little left turn.
Exactly, and that's really what I did twice. As I said, people didn't quite understand what I meant by mind mastery. It was too early. I didn't realize it was too early at the time. Sorry. Well, I didn't realize it was too early because, the law of attraction wasn't around, The Secret hadn't come out, and people weren't looking at that. So after a couple of years, when I realized I had clients because, people referred people to me, but that wasn't, and social media wasn't around at the time. But I decided that people knew me well enough that if I changed the name of my business and I let everybody know in advance, they would know. And so I changed the name of my business because it wasn't working. Now, at that time, I was working with both men and women. And I changed it to Say Yes to You Coaching. Now, what I discovered, like you just said, you speak to clients, you speak to people, was that men didn't get that. Say Yes to You. They actually didn't quite understand what I was talking about. And so I thought to myself, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Because I've already changed the company name once. And what I decided was that for men, they were primarily interested in building money. And so were my women clients, but different thinking. So I was talking, actually, truthfully, I was talking to my daughter one day who has a very successful business, and she said to me, they climb a stairway to get where they want to go. Why don't you call it your stairway to wealth?
Thank goodness for kids.
Pardon?
I said, thank God for kids.
Right. They do have some good uses.
Yes.
Apart from just grandchildren.
Yes, my mom told me that. She said the grandkids are the best way to go. Too bad you can't have them first.
Right. Good for your mother, she's right. Anyway, so I think it was about 5 years ago, when I decided, no, it was longer actually, it was longer when I decided to change the name. I was still working with men, and I changed the name of the company really because of the fact that I was working with men.
Oh, okay.
Now, I was already known at that time. I used to go to every conference that was out there, every event. I used to do a lot of speaking, and which I don't do very much of anymore. And I also decided after a year or so that I wasn't going to work with men. However, I decided I was going to keep the name of the company because it worked. The only difference was that the subtitle of the company on my website says, good health, whatever it says. I can't actually remember the subtitle, but it says good health, et cetera, equals wealth. So it's not just about money. It's about good health. It's about relationships. It's about life. If you have the life that you want, you have a tremendous amount of wealth.
I agree.
Right?
Oh, yes. That's the whole purpose of Launch Over 40. I mean, the whole thing is, even our intro to our radio shows talks about creating a life that you can fall in love with. Because money for us is only one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. For men, it tends to be more. For men, it tends to be much more about wealth because often men are the ones that earn the money so they can keep their families. So that's really, and I just kept the name because I liked it. Nobody had a problem with me changing the name. So if ever you are in a place, and it's like when I decided that I was really irritated by the fact that when I picked up a magazine, there were tips in magazines for the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. And as soon as you hit 60, there were no more tips.
Wow.
And it's like every magazine. So I started researching it. There wasn't anything for women over 60. And I thought to myself, what do they think, that we die? And, when I realized that midlife, like the baby boomer thing,
mm-hmm.
that's from 45 to 60. Why? It doesn't have to be. I'm 72. Supposing I live another 25 years, am I past midlife completely? No, I don't think so.
Well, I think that's more from the perspective of male perspective. I mean, women get older, men get quote unquote distinguished, Well,
and on my Facebook page the other day, I can't remember the exact post, but it was something that required an answer from people. And I noticed that somebody put up, well, they're talking about, old women when they're over 70.
What?
And I wrote back and I said, I hope you really are not thinking that 70 is old, because today it's not old, and 70-year-olds today don't look anything like the women of 25 years ago. And so that is unfortunately how women are still seen, as very matronly, and it seems that there are many places where they haven't got past that yet.
Yeah, it's I think it's going to change eventually. But I did an interview with a young lady from Australia, and it's just a world issue. It's not. I would love to say it's just America, but it's a world issue. And I feel that the only way things are going to change is we as women start basically defining ourselves.
Well, and I agree with you, which is one of the reasons why when I started the Midlife Woman blog, which I haven't kept up with very well, I started it because I wanted women to know that you can be over 60 and you can be over 70 and still feel at midlife.
Yeah, I think it's also, it's kind of hard to explain. I think sometimes we get stuck in roles we've had over 10 or 15 years, and that's our perspective of launch over 40. It's not just to stop at 40, it's 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. The point is that you can always redefine who you are. If you're not where you want to be, you can make changes. There's nothing that's saying that you have to stay where you are because you've been there for 10 years or you've been there for 15 years.
Right, and nowadays, of course, there's a lot of people from the corporate world who are going into becoming entrepreneurs. And, one of the reasons I no longer call myself just a coach is because basically I help women to transform and transition. That means that they can go from wherever they are. If they have a business, great, that they're not where they want to be. Or if they don't have a business and they want to start a business, but they've been in the business world, I won't work with people that have no idea about business at all. Because working with total startups is a different thing entirely. But I do want to say to your audience, it doesn't matter what age you're at. You can transition and transform yourself into anything you want to be at any age. I know women who are presidents of companies who are in their mid-80s. Well, they haven't stopped working, and they are not seen as old. And I've met a number of these women. They're not seen as old. They're seen as mature women who have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience. And that's really how you need to see yourself.
That is so true. Now, Hazel, you're still taking on clients, so how would somebody get in touch with you if they want to talk to you about maybe, start coaching with you or, start moving forward?
Well, they can obviously I do offer a 30-minute complimentary discovery call. And really all you have to do for that is to email me directly, and I will receive that email, and I always answer every email personally at Hazel, Hazel, at yourstairwaytowealth.com. And my website, which is www.yourstairwaytowealth.com, will tell you about coaching programs. And, please take a look, visit the website, take a look around. We are making some changes to the website because it needs to be updated, but right now it's still there. And I would be delighted to speak to anybody that is interested, and there's no obligation to these calls, by the way.
And you referring to
so that's the best way to get in touch with me.
And when you said there was no obligation,
HazelAtYourStairwayToWealth.com.
When you said there was no obligation, you was referring to your 30-minute consultation?
I'm sorry, you blanked out there.
Oh, sorry about that. I said when you had said there was no, commitment, that was for your 30-minute free consultation?
Yes, there's no commitment. It's a 30-minute complimentary discovery call. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to give you coaching